As someone who was raised to believe this nationalistic nonsense, learning the real history helped me connect the dots between the forces of greed and empire abroad and the injustices we face here at home. Regular listeners of this program know that we are a union talk show. We do cover news and current events, but with a focus on unions and the broader working class we fight for here in the labor movement. And while we'll talk about politics, we're also going to talk about collective bargaining and workplace organizing and labor history and other topics that we think are relevant to working people, particularly here in the American South. Now, foreign policy certainly isn't our expertise, but given current events, I did have a few thoughts to share. I've been active in the labor movement for over a dozen years now, here in North Alabama, but I've been interested in politics and history for far longer, since I was a kid. I came of age during the George W. Bush era. I watched the 9/11 attacks on TV in my 7th grade social studies class, and I remember the atmosphere of that time. The fear, the xenophobia, the bloodlust, the brutal illegal war in Iraq, a war sold to us through various shifting stories. I grew up very conservative, but in my teenage years, my curiosity got the best of me, and reading history in particular, opened my eyes to new perspectives and new ways of thinking. Around the time of the Hurricane Katrina catastrophe in New Orleans, more and more Americans had grown sour on the wars in the Middle East. And it was around this time that I learned more about the realities of American foreign policy. Like when the democratically elected government of Iran wanted to nationalize its oil, much to the chagrin of the British capitalist. So the CIA and MI6 engineered a bloody coup in 1953 called Operation Ajax. This installed the Shah in power, and the West propped up his military dictatorship for the next 25 years or so before it fell with the Iranian Islamic Revolution. Then, of course, there was the horrific Iran-Iraq War, where Iraq's military dictator Saddam Hussein, who was backed by the West with all sorts of weaponry and resources. But turns out, with the Iran-Contra affair, the U.S. was also selling weapons to the Iranians. At the same time, it was backing Saddam in order to fund right-wing death squads in Latin America, which is a whole other can of worms warranting its own discussion. After that, Saddam was put on the bad guys list, and there was more war and more deadly sanctions, which leads us to the W. Bush administration, telling us tall tales about an axis of evil with weapons of mass destruction that hated us for our freedoms.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
As someone who was raised to believe this nationalistic nonsense that W and his crew were selling, learning the real history was disorienting. It forced me to question all sorts of things, and ultimately helped me connect the dots between the forces of greed and empire abroad and the injustices we face here at home. It was later that I came to realize the power of the labor movement and its central importance to winning the better world we deserve. I saw that by building unions, we build power for working people. That's when I committed to labor, not just here at home, but as a part of a movement for global justice for everyday working people. As a unionist, I am for peace. Peace is a union value. War redirects our resources, money that could go to schools, healthcare, good jobs, into bombs, wars, and profits for defense contractors. It threatens the lives of workers and their families here and abroad. Union solidarity isn't limited by borders. When workers suffer anywhere, that weakens labor everywhere. That's why I'm with the United Electrical Workers UE, and why I support their June 24 statement, "No more Mideast wars." As UE notes, quote, President Trump launched an unprovoked bombing attack on Iran, built on a set of lies for political and financial gain, just like the disastrous Iraq War, making the world and the people of the U.S. less safe and less economically secure. UE adds that our tax dollars feed an over $800 billion military-industrial budget, soon to eclipse $1 trillion, all while working-class needs, from living wages to affordable health care, go unmet. You can find the full statement at ueunion.org, and I encourage you to not only check it out, but share it with your network and your brothers and sisters. Workers don't benefit from war. Corporations and their shareholders do. In peace, that gives us room to deepen collective bargaining, strengthen our unions, invest in our communities, and build the kind of power we need to address the multiple layers of crisis bearing down upon us. That's why labor should be principle-driven in opposing war. Because when we say no more war, we're saying yes to working-class priorities. We have to continue building labor's voice on foreign policy. Through protests, through public statements, pressure in Congress, media outreach, political education. We need more unions to speak up so that the labor movement speaks with one loud voice against endless wars and empire. We're not just fighters at the bargaining table, we're voices for peace and working class justice everywhere. An injury to one is an injury to all.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.